was the rust, but in kind of the environmental discourses, everybody's concerned about the Smooth Canal.
The big thing, you guys
and everybody here might not know about it, so maybe just a...
Yeah, start from the basics.
So for the last 120 years, Nicaragua's been, and particularly the U.S. historically, has been talking about building a canal across Nicaragua. This has been an old debate that's happened multiple times. But it would be a big deal. In fact, before they built the canal in Panama, they were thinking about building it in Nicaragua. So very interesting to look at the history of the canal in context. Now, every time the debate gets hot, there's lots of land speculation that's going to be happening on the potential route for the canal. I think this is, so what's the latest in the last 5 years? The Ortega administration has found a Chinese entrepreneur. He's got to be tied to the government. I can't imagine that China would approve something like this. Who's said he has $50 billion to build a canal across Nicaragua. And I'm never sure how serious it is, but it sounds like it's as serious as it's been. Generally, these mega projects are kind of, from my perspective, are usually the mega projects in Central America either cause a lot of displacement, a lot of uprising, and usually they kind of fail in some kind of colossal way. I don't know. This time the government has a lot of control. Chinese have a lot of capital. I'm not sure what's going to happen. There are debates. The debates within the country, I would characterize them as not particularly open, unfortunately. There certainly would be consequences. Environmentally, it would go through Lake Nicaragua. It would go through this lake. And I haven't done, I haven't seen the studies or done the research in this area, but it would go basically right through here, over to the Pacific, connecting the Pacific and the Atlantic.
The largest freshwater lake in the country.
Yes, and it's also a shallow lake, so there'd be lots of consequences in terms of the dredging that would go on there, and the whole and these lakes are connected, right? So the whole water cycle could be dramatically impacted.
The adapted species, unparalleled biodiversity.
Yeah, the biodiversity impacts would be tremendous. The people that would lose access to their land on the coastal areas would be significant. I mean, you don't have to actually do the studies to see it.
The movement of invasives from the Atlantic to the Pacific and back again.
Yeah, see, that's
ecotypes, including. I mean, it's such a colossal environmental impact that no nation should have the ability to do it. But there it is. That's not how we go.
Well, if they did 100 or 70 years ago, they were talking about using nuclear weapons to build those canals.
Right.
They're literally talking about detonating atomic bombs.
The world policy was to drain all wetlands too.
Right.
So we need to remember that we do have some control over our behavior as humans, and we need to reflect that.
Right.
I mean, I'm definitely saying with the environmental critiques of it. I have some colleagues that are not in the government, but they've worked closely, and they will say, look, Nicaragua has historically been dependent on foreign aid, right? From the U.S. during the right-wing administrations to Venezuela, and that this is their economic revenue-generating opportunity, building a canal. I have some questions about the long-term consequences on that one, honestly, but I feel like I should do them justice to put it on the table there too, because of I don't see these as being reversible in terms of the environmental impacts.
No. And they should hold it hostage. They should say, you know what, pay us enough money and we won't do it, but they should not do it.
Yeah. Well, we've got this, the debate about the $100 billion climate adaptation fund. I don't know if there's
money for that. Questions about the research? I know that we've kind of taken a detour to ask our resident Nicaragua expert about the canal.
Any, methods questions or survey stuff? You guys follow my argument more or less? I went a little quickly probably in some parts.
No, that's good. That's good. No, I think, so I think in terms of
suggestions.
The future, well no, I'm thinking about the future of like coffee in general. I mean, is it kind of and this kind of goes back to some of the land use questions you were asking earlier, is it still going under is it a growth industry still? Like, are we dedicating more land?
Well,
I guess the acreage is expanding.
It's really interesting. So the acreage of coffee production in Nicaragua has expanded. The demand for these specialty coffees, as you guys know, have gone up. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you look at the climate models for this crop suitability for coffee growing in this region, a lot of these areas within 25, by 2050, but even some by like 2030, they claim are not going to be suitable for coffee production. Now, of course, there could be agroecological management strategies and different approaches for dealing with it. So, coffee is a smaller portion of their export income, but it's still significant.
Okay.
I do think, though, in terms of your question, and here's where I would like to see. This is a kind of hypothesis for the next phase of the research. If we look at the response from the coffee industry, which has put up a couple $1 million, maybe more, Central America wide, a couple $100 million, right, for the response to the Roya. But if that response is only guided by the coffee industry and supported by AID, and if it says you need to grow more coffee, that's how you need to recover from this Roya, are they actually building the future livelihood in for these farmers by offering low cost or grants to replant coffee?
Right.
That's going to make them vulnerable for the next hazard that comes in, right? So that would be an example of producing vulnerability to the next hazard. Or are they going to say, grow more coffee but also grow this mix, or look at these options, or is there going to be a wider debate? And I think that's where we'd like to see more empirical evidence about what makes the people more resilient and also what people want to do, right? Not just like, you need to do this.
Yeah, right, no, totally. And just kind of a follow-up on it. So in California or the United States, when you have a pest outbreak, you have this institution called agricultural extension.
Yes.
Right, that has expertise that they could put on the ground, and sometimes maybe that
right.
is a complicated expert to have there because they might have certain kind of ways of thinking about how agriculture should be done. But do these co-ops or do these organizations have the equivalent of an agricultural extension, and does that institution itself need capacity building in some way, or is it kind of dependent on the farmer's information? I guess there's got to be some.
No, there
always is some exchange with farmers in ag extension, right? They have to learn things on the ground. So, but what does that look like?
That's a very good institution. I mean, the government does have some ag extension programs, and they have been investing more in there. And I actually. So the chief of the researcher for INTA, who I critique, the farmers critique, they've been working on this stuff too. They are concerned, and he knows about. I share the results with him. He basically gives me says, "Okay, you do this research here." The co-ops do have agronomists, and that's really key. And like understanding like which race of the Roya is this a new, more violent race, or et cetera, what's resistant to it. But it's usually about like one agronomist for every 300, 200 or 300 farmers. And how much time are they on the farm, looking at these issues, giving advice versus filling in the paperwork for a certification or a project? That's another debate. But that is a lot of where the learning can happen. And there are some strategies that people are experimenting with in terms of organic control for the Roya.
Right. Okay.
So
they are.
And that's a good place.
There are radical extensionists in.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Some of them start out kind of classically trained agronomists in the UNA, which you may have been associated with when you were there, right? The National Agrarian University, which now has an agroecology master's program. And so some of these agronomists actually, this is through the NGO work, we end up giving them an additional community-based training over a period of years, taking out to Chiapas and stuff like that. And then they go back and they're doing organic agriculture. I mean, Peru Club has 1,000 certified organic farmers, right? But they were trained to do sort of green revolution agriculture. So they're caught in this real weird world, and that's where agroecology can help them sort of rethink their role. And they got it. I mean, they have to go, just like the farm goes through a transition, people's way of thinking about doing extension goes through a transition.
Right.
I've worked with a lot of extension folks here, and also a lot of extension folks in Latin America, and in my experience, across the board, the folks here are a lot more conservative and a lot more conventional agriculture oriented, where the folks in Latin America tend to be more likely to be influenced by ideas of agroecology and also different structures of their training that are much more farmer to farmer type, although they're not called that. They're basically doing internships with farmers rather than. And then there's the folks who work for the big companies. Right. And they'll go out and sell every pesticide under the sun. But the folks that come out of the national training program, the national universities, tend to, in my completely unsystematic observation, has a lot more open minds.
I think my sense is that it's changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
When I was there with ISCA.
Okay. So But they are open. They want, and I think part of it could be, and maybe you're working other places in Latin America, because of the influence of Paulo Freire and this kind of approach, people want to go there. Although sometimes, like, I mean, even with these agronomists with protocol that were well trained, when we started talking about, I'll give you guys an example. We started talking about home gardens, right? And when they thought home gardens, they went back to like their agronomy class that saw like 3 little beds, which are fine, right, with like some radishes and tomatoes. But if you look at a home garden, like the picture for this talk, right, the home garden that we're talking about here is going to be some banana trees, you know, kakisque. There's going to be like
integrated. It's
a much more integrated, you know, perennial and annual system.
Right.
And we didn't, you know, so it took a while of just talking through what do we mean when we say we need to do home gardens, right? And this is kind of observing a development project, right, that I'm doing, but it's for them to kind of, okay, because that knowledge hadn't been imparted when they were in, you know, agronomy school, and some of them had it from growing up, some of them had forgotten it, right? Or they just don't, when they go out into, what do you see when you go on the farm? They would say, okay, well, here are the beds, right? But then they wouldn't see the tree that was growing right next to it and say, that's part of the home garden too. Mm. And so it took us a while, and you know what really helped? Was actually some of these farmer-to-farmer leaders would come in and work with the more conventional agronomists. Mm.
Let's thank Chris for and he's nearby. He's only a couple miles away.